Hello there, I'm Louise Brady and welcome to Top 10 Bikes 2003. Our star-studded panel have been studying the form of all the runners in this year's charts to bring you the ultimate guide to the bikes from 2003. This coveted award will be presented to the manufacturer of this week's #1 machine. The question is, which bike will it be? Well, sit tight and all will be revealed very soon. At the end of the series, there'll be a special show where we find out if you agree with the voting of our Men and Motors panel. I'm one of the panellists, and as the show progresses, you'll get the opportunity to meet the other journalists involved. So let's get started on the countdown of this week's category, Muscle Bike. Well, here we are on the start line, so let's take a look at the bike in 10th position. The year is 1985, and the iconic muscle bike is just about to be born. Yamaha launched its VMAX and blew a lot of people's minds with this outrageous machine. 19 years on and the VMAX is sadly coming to the end of its shelf life as it can't quite cut it with the competition anymore. The heart of the VMAX is its awesome V4 engine, which with its V boost brought a smile to the faces of many and a look of sheer terror to some. This engine is still very impressive, pumping out a highly entertaining 140 brake horsepower. The trouble being that the frame and chassis just couldn't cope with this bike's combination of stunning power and huge weight. 262 kilos is a lot of bike, and when you tip this bike into a corner, riders found it wanted to ride bucking and weaving into the nearest hedge or roadside ornament. Handling is not what this bike is all about. It's all about straight line grunt and is more like a road-going drag bike than a super bike. If only Yamaha would bring out a bang up-to-date version of this bike, then there will be a lot of very happy bunnies indeed. Right, let's see what the boys have to say about this big machine.
The VMAX is one of those bikes that you really must have a go on at some time in your life, in your motorcycling life, because it's an icon and it is an interesting experience.
Unbelievable motor. Chassis is a little bit rubber, you know, it doesn't really like going around corners, but understandably and rightly so, it's become a real cult bike.
You could credit it with really setting the ball rolling for muscle bike category.
The Yamaha VMAX is a bike from another age. It has got a strong engine, but the chassis couldn't keep up when it was new, and it feels even worse now.
Well, as most riders know, this bike is a real beastie. It'll go very fast in a straight line, but has a lot of trouble in the corners. And as for the stopping department, well, you're going to have to fax the brakes if you want them to work. So our combined scores for each category of street cred, build quality, performance, comfort and value give the VMAX a total score of 73%, putting it firmly at the bottom of our chart in 10th place. Stomping in at number 9, it's the Buell Firebolt. You have to applaud Eric Buell for attempting to make a bike with superbike handling and performance from what is a Harley Davidson. In fact, he did such a good job that Harley themselves bought his company. The Firebolt XB9R is a stunning bike to look at. In fact, the more you look, the more intriguing items you see. For example, in an attempt to make the bike as small and agile as possible, the fuel is stored within the frame. And even more surprisingly, the oil is kept in the swing arm of all places. Many sports bike riders out there would never consider a Buell, but when you do consider its handling, performance and stunning looks, you have to ask why. They are missing out on such a great motorbike.
I like the Firebolt. I like anything that's a little bit different, and in that respect, the Firebolt delivers on every count.
Buell like to do things differently, and they're a brave manufacturer. The Firebolt is a brave bike with a lot of interesting technology on it. The engine's always just felt a bit on the weedy side.
Well, I say it's an oddball motorcycle, but it's different and I do like the look. It's rather uncomfortable, but it's quite funky and it can really hold its own. So after we've done the maths, the combined scores for each of the category gives the Buell Firebolt a total score of 74%, placing it 9th in our top 10 chart. In at number 8, the BMW R1150R. BMW's R1150R is a great bike in its own right, but has also spawned other notable bike names, namely the R1150 GS and more recently the Rockster. The basics of this bike are very sound indeed. At its heart lies an 1130cc boxer twin motor, for which BMW is renowned, pushing out 85 brake horsepower. But it's the smooth, almost lazy way this power is produced that makes this engine a great one. Telelever suspension at the front means braking forces and suspension are kept apart, giving a very smooth and impressive ride. BMW use servo-assisted brakes, which give the bike awesome stopping power. Just a single finger will have this bike stopping like it hit a cliff before you know it. Take into account BMW's well-earned reputation for build quality and reliability, and you have yourself one great little bike.
A really good looking bike, and again a bit of an alternative to the mainstream of Japanese muscle bikes and things like the Speed Triple.
Yeah, the 1150R is, I think, a very, very good looking bike. Interesting to look at, looks very different from different angles. It's got a sort of a bulldog look to it and so on. But in the end, ultimately, it's a bit soft. The suspension's soft, the engine's very soft and gentle, and as a muscle bike, it doesn't really cut it.
Not really a muscle bike, it's more of a middleweight, and I've got to say, I'm not a big fan. So the panel's combined scores for each category give the BMW R1150R a total score of 77%, putting it firmly into 8th place in our top 10 muscle bikes chart. In at 7, Suzuki's Bandit 1200. Suzuki's Bandit 1200 uses a version of its classic air-cooled 1157cc inline 4 and manages to make a respectable 99 brake horsepower. The reliability of this engine is beyond question, making this bike a favourite for street fighters and stunt nutters. Handling is okay, and it's not likely to become a scratcher's tool, but if you want to have some fun, it'll let you up to a point. The Bandit is let down though by its suspension. Being built to a price, it means corners are cut. The front forks are underdamped and the rear shock is just not up to the job. Long distance riding two up is fine as the seat is pretty comfortable. The pillion's knees aren't wrapped around their ears either, which all helps. It's a bike that can be sensible if you want it to, but it can also be the definitive road-going stunt bike, which if that's what you're looking for, then maybe this could be the one for you.
It feels a bit old compared with its rivals now. The engine's a bit buzzy, and it's not quite got the rush at the top end. Pretty torquey in the mid-range and so on, and it's not bad, and stunt riders love them.
Suzuki's Bandit 1200 launched 1,000 wheelies, sold 1,000 end cans, and has become an icon, a cult bike. It's a bit softer than it used to be, but it's still a great all-rounder. Not actually a retro bike, it's actually a modern bike.
This Suzuki has been around for a long time now, and I think it's the preferred option of the naughty but nice rider. You get a lot of bike for your money, and I'm giving this one the thumbs up. Well, the Bandit 1200 has been given a total score of 78% by our panel of experts, putting it firmly into 7th place in our chart. In at 6, the Suzuki GSX 1400. Retro meeting technology is what this bike is all about. It really does look the part with its twin rear shocks, twin exhausts and that big naked engine, making what you think is an animal quite a beast. Actually, the bike itself is a bit of a disappointment. That engine is a 1400cc inline 4 throwing out 105 brake horsepower and torque that a diesel truck will be proud of. But ride is hard, and you'll soon find that right after that huge mid-range surge, there's really not much else. Acceleration is this bike's forte. Try to run with the big boys for speed and you'll soon find yourself looking for a new bike, as the top end just isn't there. Fortunately, this bike is easy to live with, allowing you to filter and do all the slow speed stuff you could ever want to do.
Suzuki have obviously got something right with the GSX 1400, because they're just waltzing out of the shops. It's a stonking engine. Speedo goes right up to 180 miles an hour, although I don't think you're going to be doing anything like that unless you've got a neck like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Amazing motor, loads of grunt, absolutely stacks of grunt, and quite a big bike as well, physically. I mean, obviously it's a 1400cc bike, but the actual chassis is quite large as well, so smaller riders might be put off.
Well, I say a rather racy looking machine and rather lardy. It's all about brute force, but it's not a badly priced bike. Right, our panel's combined scores for each category give the Suzuki GSX 1400 a total score of 79%, putting it firmly into 6th place in our muscle bikes chart. Right, we're halfway through our chart of muscle-bound monsters, but don't go anywhere or we'll be sending them after you. And you don't want to miss our #1 heavyweight now, do you? See you in a mo. Welcome back to Top 10 Bikes. I'm Louise Brady, guiding you through the top 10 tough nuts. We're looking at the muscle bikes of 2003. But before we rejoin our top 10, let's have a quick recap from 10 down to 6. At number 10, it's the golden oldie Yamaha's VMAX. In at 9, the flashy Buell Firebolt. At number 8, the BMW R1150R. In at 7, the stunt bike special Suzuki Bandit 1200. And at 6, the Suzuki GSX 1400. So let's rejoin our countdown at number 5. Ducati's monster has been with us for over 10 years now and has had many incarnations, but there's not been one to match the S4R. Finally, we get the monster that everyone has been longing for, utilising that fantastic motor from the old 996. That water-cooled V-twin gives this bike a neck-snapping 111 brake horsepower, combined with enough grunt to keep even the most power-mad of you out there truly happy. Open the throttle and this bike is off like a rocket, but make sure you have a good grip or you'll be left sat in the middle of the road watching your pride and joy ride off on its own. The handling of this bike is superb, allowing you to carve round all your favourite bends. And if the need takes you, this bike is perfectly capable of your typical bad boy behaviour. Be prepared to have only one wheel on the deck at any one time.
The S4R scores every place where its younger brother, the basic monster, doesn't. It's got bags and bags of attitude, and those high-level cans just look the part.
Ducati's launched loads of monsters over the years, but this one I think was the one that was most eagerly awaited. It kind of has taken the shortcomings of the Monster S4, which was a little bit of a dodgy handling, looks a bit too similar to the air-cooled monsters, and really given it a bit of a real sort of edge.
Yeah, the S4R, that's the one for me. That is just fantastic. You've got, first of all, you've got a 996 Ducati engine, and it's very, very fast. Lots of power, lots of torque.
I'd say this is the new king of the muscle bikes. The Monster S4R should not be allowed. It has a perfect chassis, an awesome motor, and it goes like a rocket. It's the daddy. So our total tally for each category, which is made up of street cred, build quality, performance, comfort and value, give the Ducati S4R a total score of 80%, putting it firmly into 5th place in our chart. Sliding into number 4 is the Triumph Speed Triple. Looks-wise, the bike resembles a Daytona that's been crashed and never fully repaired. The lack of plastic, though, seems to suit it, and with those strange bug-eye headlights, this bike is very distinctive. Triumph have weaved their handling magic on this bike, and it's truly fantastic to take down your favourite twisty road, as long as you aren't trying for too much speed. There is an optional fly screen type fairing available, which does actually make quite a bit of difference at high speeds, as well as adding to the bike's looks. Colours have always been a strange one for the Speed Triple, with it having been available in metallic lime green, bright blue and a rather fetching metallic pink. Actually, it does look good in the blue and the green, and if you fancy being an individual, the pink one is an absolute must. After all, how many pink bikes have you seen around on the roads?
In Triumph's range, the Speed Triple is their defining bike. It's got attitude, it's got performance, it makes you feel great when you ride it, it looks good. It really is a stunning bike.
It really does handle superbly. You've got a fantastic engine, a top chassis, superb brakes, and as a riding experience, complete with the sound as well, it's really very, very hard to beat.
The Triumph Speed Triple, a lovely looking machine. It looks very aggressive and I really fancy those bug-eyed headlights. OK, the power won't blow your socks off, but hey, at least it's British. So our panel's combined scores for each category give the Triumph Speed Triple a total score of 81%, placing it 4th in our top 10 muscle bikes chart. In at 3, the Yamaha XJR 1300. Yamaha's XJR 1300 has received a much-needed facelift for 2003. Engine mods have given it more low-down and mid-range power, making it a fantastically fast bike away from the lights. The XJR may not have the hooligan ability of a couple of other bikes in this countdown, but what it likes it certainly makes up for with character and performance. Ground clearance is a little limited, but this bike will still tackle all types of riding. Its wide, comfortable seat makes it ideal for carrying pillions, and even touring isn't beyond it. The XJR 1300 is a fantastic all-round bike, so if you feel the need for power, retro looks and some handling thrown in for good measure, then get down to your local dealers now.
A gorgeous looking bike. If you get the SP version, I think they only sell it now in like the SP version with Öhlins rear shocks. Fantastic, it looks superb. And that motor's so gutsy you can pull from top gear with 1,000 revs on the clock. So it's a real Torquemeister of a motor.
One word sums up the XJR 1300, mental. It's full on, bags of attitude, stonking great engine. It's just shouts attitude.
Well, it's a big lump of muscly motorbike, and it's certainly got all the toys on board to talk the talk down the pub. It's got a serious engine in a good chassis, so it really won't disappoint. Therefore, in third place in our muscle bikes chart is the Yamaha XJR 1300, with our panel's combined scores for each category giving the bike 82%. Not quite hitting the top spot is the Honda CB 1300 in at number 2. New for 2003, Honda CB 1300 carries on a long line of naked retro style winners from the Big H. It's an update of the old CB 1000 and has been available in Japan for 5 years. After a total update, Honda are now letting the UK market sample their big muscle bike. The engine is now a 1284cc inline 4, which makes around 114 brake horsepower, which is more than enough to get this bike hustling along at a decent old pace. Now, the old CB 1000 was always known for plenty of grunt. The new 1300 has added to that with a big boost of mid-range power. Now 8 kilos lighter, this new engine features fuel injection and a new emissions control system, which should keep those gentlemen in Brussels more than happy. A new frame was made to handle the engine's newfound strength, and shorter wheelbase and better ground clearance should see it handle better around the bends. With the CB 1300, you should get Honda's legendary build quality and reliability, so this bike should mean you get plenty of smiles for your miles.
The Honda CB 1300 matches old school retro looks with high-tech Honda trickery, and the end result is a really good motorbike.
Honda's deliberately gone for a very, very high quality build on that bike, and it really shows. There's some lovely touches on it, and you get a lot of motorcycle for your money, and it's extremely well made.
This Honda should pull like a freight train right down from 2000 RPM. Pick a gear, any gear, and it will hurl you into the horizon at an alarming pace. Tallying together the scores for each category of street cred, build quality, performance, comfort and value give the Honda CB 1300 a total score of 83%, putting it firmly into second place in our chart. As you wait on tenterhooks to find out which bike the Men and Motors panel of experts voted the number 1 in the muscle bikes category, let's run down the top 10 so far from 10 to 2. At number 10, the straight line beast, the Yamaha VMAX. At 9, the American offering Buell Firebolt. In at 8, the European BMW R1150R. And at number 7, the stuntman's favourite, it's the Suzuki Bandit 1200. Number 6 finds the Suzuki GSX 1400, while at 5 it's the ferocious Ducati Monster S4R. At 4 we voted in the British Triumph Speed Triple. And at number 3 it's the Yamaha XJR 1300. At number 2 it's the new muscle-bound Honda CB 1300. So have you guessed what's at the top spot? The best of the retro beasts at number 1, it's the Kawasaki ZRX 1200. Let's have a little look. First seen as the ZRX 1100, this bike has been around for some time now, featuring a variation of the old ZZR 1100 engine, which has been breathed on to make 120 brake horsepower. Ride this bike and you almost seem able to get into top gear straight away, and just ride along using this bike's torque almost like an automatic gearbox. The bike has a retro appearance, it really doesn't look like a modern day bike. The handling is fantastic and will allow this bike to be chucked around the bends like it's on rails, which is possibly down to the bike's weight of 223 kilos, keeping it tracking nicely. I reckon this is the ideal bike for those of you out there wanting a proper bike with the engine on show. Retro styling that really works, and with a touch of plastic to keep some of the worst weathers off you. As with all Kawasaki's, you should really get it in the green colour scheme, as everyone knows the green ones are the quickest, so they say.
For me, this is my favourite muscle bike, but it's got to be in green and it's got to have the bikini fairing on. Fantastic bike, brakes are up to the job, handling's good, and that engine, get it revving, it's top fun.
ZRX 1200 is the mean kid on the block. Gutsy engine, well built, well put together, looks the part, it's mean. Just one thing though, make sure it's a green one if you get one. Just doesn't look it right in any other colour.
It harks back to Kawasaki's glory days of the early 80s, and as a motorcycle it actually works really well. The engine's strong, the chassis is good, the brakes work really well, it's got a little fairing. It's a great bike.
The ZRX, I like it for its looks because there's an authenticity with Kawasaki's in particular, the big ones. They just look brutal, and partly it's because of the history, because they really were. This is a very good looking bike, the ZRX. It also happens to go around corners very well, and it's got a powerful engine. It's got a lot of torque, 120 horsepower or so at the top end, and of those bikes, of the big Japanese fours, that's the one for me. I like the ZRX a lot.
Well, congratulations to Kawasaki there. I think one of the reasons it's won, it's because it's beefy in all the right places and of course has that big top end rush and that lovely induction noise you only get from that Kawasaki motor. Well, our combined scores for each of the categories gave the Kawasaki ZRX 1200 a total whopping score of 84%, giving it that well-deserved #1 place in our chart.
Well, thanks very much for this award. This is the second year in a row we've won this for the muscle bike, the ZRX 1200R. And of course it's been voted for by the journalists, and we all know that they're extremely difficult people to please. So if they're happy, we're happy, and I'm sure the customers will be happy.
I'm Louise Brady saying farewell until next week for another chart of Top 10 Bikes. See you then.